This is a step-by-step guide to fixing a Google suspension. I'm going to walk you through a number of steps, hence a step-by-step guide. So first we're going to talk about auditing your suspended account. Then we'll talk about auditing your website. Then we'll talk about auditing your digital footprint. Then we'll talk about appealing and the persistence that often has to go with that appealing process. And if you're wondering, who am I? Why am I speaking to these things? Well, my name is John, and I'm the CEO of StubGroup. We are a Google Premier partner, and for over a decade, we have been fixing Google suspensions and helping businesses stay compliant with Google's policies. And we've also created a number of very comprehensive free resources related to fixing Google suspensions that I'll mention throughout the course of this video, and that you can find linked in the description for this video. So the first thing I'm going to say to you is let's say I'm going to assume that you are watching this video after your account is suspended. Well, please don't panic. Now, what I mean by that is not consider this to be a problem, because this is a very big problem. I have seen firsthand how devastating Google suspensions can be. I've seen businesses go out of business. I've seen businesses have to lay off a significant number of staff. I've seen all sorts of things happen because, let's face it, Google is probably the most important marketing channel out there. Most people use Google to find products and services, and if you can't use advertising to get in front of them, for many businesses, that can be either a death knell or a massive blow to them. And so I get how important this suspension issue is for you. But when I say don't panic, what I mean by that is don't take actions that you're going to regret because they decreased the chances of you being successful in fixing this suspension. And I'll walk you through what I mean by this. So for a lot of businesses, when they first get that red bar of death in their ad account, get that email from Google saying they are suspended, the first thing they think about is, I didn't do anything wrong. Or maybe, I don't know what I did wrong. Let me ask Google. And so they go and they do a half-baked appeal to Google. And it's not really even appeal. It's just a, hey, we don't know what we did wrong. Tell us what we did wrong. We'll fix it type of thing. And you'd think, common sense, that would make sense. Hey, Google is a business. They want to take your money. Of course, they're going to tell you what you did wrong so they can keep taking your money, right? Well, wrong. Unfortunately, that's not really how Google works. Google is a behemoth, and they have very vague and confusing policies in the appeal process, often speaking. And so what will happen if you send that appeal in is you're going to get a rejection. And that rejection will tell you really nothing more than the boilerplate information they gave you when they initially told you that you were suspended. And they might mention a circumventing systems policy or suspicious payments or unacceptable business practices, misrepresentation, lots of different options. But they're not going to tell you, you did 1, 2, and 3 things wrong, and here's how to fix them. They just don't tell you that. And so you have a choice to make. You can either figure out how to fix this yourself, or you can work with someone who specializes in this. Now, I'm biased because I have a company that specializes in fixing suspensions. And I've seen so many problems occur when people try the DIY route. And so I'm going to certainly encourage you to think about hiring someone like StubGroup to fix your problem for you. But I am making this content to be helpful to you, whether or not you do this yourself or you hire someone to help you. And so I strongly recommend watching this video. I also have created a lot of content. Our company has created a lot of content that is for free on our website. And we have a link to that in the description here, and we'll mention different aspects of that as we go. And you can go to our Policy Center, StubGroup's free Google Policy Center on our website, to download templates, step-by-step guides, all sorts of helpful information to fix different types of Google suspensions. The content I'm going to talk about today is relevant to Google Ads accounts, Google Merchant Center accounts, and to a certain extent, Google Local Service Ads accounts as well. And it's relevant to pretty much every type of suspension. So again, you might have a very specific type of suspension, and we've created a lot of content around specific types of suspensions that I encourage you to go download and watch. But everything I'm going to talk about today is very relevant to understanding the process that goes into place really for every type of suspension. So without further ado, let's get into the step-by-step process. First of all, let's talk about auditing your ad account. So sometimes the problem that triggered your ad account suspension is something that exists in your ad account. Not always, we'll talk about websites in a minute, but sometimes it is. And so it's important that you do a detailed audit of everything in your account to identify things that may have caused the suspension. Or if they didn't cause the suspension, there might still be problems that might prevent Google from accepting your appeal when you submit the appeal. Now, unfortunately, you can't go and fix the problems that you identify in your ad account. It used to be that even after your account was suspended, you could still go and make all sorts of changes, and then in your appeal to Google, you would say, I fixed this, this, and this, and Google would see that you fixed those things. But in 2024, Google changed that. Basically, they freeze the account now so that you cannot go and make new changes. You can't even go and add new users to your suspended account. It's kind of frozen in time, and you're stuck. And so what you need to do with this audit, instead of making changes, you need to identify what you would change, record those things, and then you're going to speak to those things in your appeal and basically say, hey, if you reinstate our account, here are the things that we are going to fix that might be problems. And so, okay, well, what do we look for when you audit your ad account? Well, we have a pretty detailed guide to what to look for in our free policy center that you can click on the link in this video to go see. And we cover a number of things. There's a lot of things to look for. Some of the common things are issues with URLs, so where you are sending traffic from in your ad account. There could be things like redirects, there could be broken pages, there could be mistaken things you copied from one place to another and didn't realize was there. All sorts of issues around URLs that could cause trigger issues or cause suspensions. And one thing that a lot of people don't know is that if you have old paused campaigns in your account, even things you haven't run for years, Google still crawls those paused things. We've seen many instances where issues with paused ads, paused URLs triggered a suspension, even though you weren't actually running those ads on Google. So look for issues with URLs. Look for issues in, of course, the ad copy itself. If you're being too aggressive with how you're saying things, if you are advertising, old sales, old offers that are no longer available on your website, if you've accidentally, let's say, used competitor names or trademarks in your ad copy, things like that, anything that could violate Google's policies or make Google suspicious or concerned about what you're saying in your ads is an issue that you should identify and address in your appeal. You should also look at things like change history in your ad account. And if you see strange things in there, that could indicate that maybe your account was compromised. So that happens a lot. Hackers get in and they use your account to run things that are not compliant with Google's policies, and that's why Google suspends your account. And if you find an issue like that, then you need to go to Google and report the account as compromised and work through that process to get your account secured and then hopefully reinstated. So auditing your account and putting together a very detailed list of what you're going to change if Google accepts your appeal is very, very important. The second thing is auditing your website. So very often, an ad account suspension or a Google Merchant Center account suspension is related to issues with your website. It could be problems with your website, or it could be missing information that's not on your website. And we have a very detailed audit guide of things to walk through and look for on your website that I strongly encourage you to download from our website. And they are things like policy pages. So if you don't have refund and return policy, privacy policy, shipping policy, return policy, things like that, that can be an issue because Google expects you to have those things so that people who are interacting with your website know what your policies are for those interactions. It could be things like incorrect or missing contact information, that Google's not seeing legitimate information about you on your website. It could be the lack of disclaimers. It could be problematic keywords on your website. It could be broken links. It could be so many different things. It could be, reviews that don't have appropriate disclaimers. It could be, depending on what particular vertical you're in, there are specific policies, things you have to say on your website. So for example, if you are in the health space, the supplement space, if you are in the financial space, other spaces as well, there's a lot of very specific terminology Google needs to see, disclaimers, things like that. There's too much to go into in one video about issues that might be on your website, and that's why we have our audit document available, again, for free. Oh, also another thing to mention, there's all sorts of code level issues that might exist with your website. So for example, sometimes there are security plugins that are preventing Google's robots from crawling your website correctly. When that happens, they suspend you because they don't know what you're saying, and they assume that you're blocking them for malicious reason, even if you're not. There could be actual malware in your website. You could have been hacked and compromised, and Google could be correctly identifying that and saying, hey, you got to clean this up before we let you send people from ads to your website. All sorts of things like that and many more. So the nice thing about your website as compared to your ad account is you can actually make changes and fix problems on your website. And so you should do that and make changes, fix the problems, and again, keep great records of what you're changing because you're going to need to mention these things in your appeal. Now, the third thing that I'll mention is your digital footprint. So what do I mean by this? Well, Google wants to know as much about you as possible as a business and make sure that you're legit, that you are not going to scam people who are clicking on ads. You're not going to create problems. And so they will often research you. They'll literally Google you and see what comes up. And so you should do the same thing. And there are often situations where you might find things like, hey, negative reviews that you haven't replied to and given context about that could be giving an inaccurate perception of your legitimacy as a business. There could be issues with your physical address. Maybe it doesn't pull up information about your business, and that looks suspicious or confusing to Google. All sorts of things like that, where if Google has concerns about what comes up or doesn't come up when they Google you as a business, that could influence their decision of saying, we're not sure these guys are legit. And that is why they are kicking you off their platform. And so be aware of those things, identify what you can, fix what you can, and address these things in your appeal. And create as much legitimacy as possible. Get truthful, accurate reviews from clients for your business. Get things like the Better Business Bureau rating for your business. Add credibility elements to your website, and just do what you can to prove to Google that you are an upstanding citizen, so to speak, and should be a part of Google's platform. And so then that brings us to the appeals process. So how do you appeal a suspension? Well, you submit an appeal through your ad account. There are different questions that you need to ask or answer, I should say, depending on the type of suspension. And then generally speaking, you're allowed to write information, basically making a case for what you've done to fix the issue. And also you can generally provide documentation as well to go along with what you submit. And you need to be really strategic and careful about your appeal. You should not be, first of all, you should not be abusing Google and saying, you guys are terrible, you're destroying my business, you better, let me back online. That doesn't help your case. You need to be respectful, professional, direct, very comprehensive. Don't cut corners in your appeal. Don't be like, oh, we made a bunch of changes and you should let us back online. It should be, we fixed this. We fixed this. We fixed this. We're going to fix this when you reinstate our ability to make changes in the ad account, so forth and so on. And then provide as much supporting documentation as you can about your business, your legitimacy, why they should trust you to advertise through their platform. And then submit that appeal. And the appeal process with Google can be very frustrating because they don't always accept the first appeal or the second or the third. This is where persistence, like I mentioned earlier in this video, comes into play, where you have to really be persistent in submitting appeals. Sometimes we have to do different angles, different creative things. We'll also try and push things internally to get appeals reviewed where we can with our team at Google. And sometimes Google is very inconsistent. And so you got to work through this process meticulously with a lot of patience. And I know it's frustrating to hear be patient because, again, this is impacting your business. This is costing you money every day. You're not running ads with Google, and it can be devastating, and I get it. But trying to cut corners, trying to do things too quickly in the long run is counterproductive. It will decrease your likelihood of success. It will make things take longer. And so you've got to put in the hard work, the elbow grease, and ideally, I would say, again, biased, but I would say work with the experts who have done this countless times and who know what steps to go through. Yeah, at the end of the day, it is a very challenging thing to have a Google suspension, a very frustrating thing. But I will say there is hope. We have helped so many businesses get unsuspended, even in situations where Google told them that there was no hope, where other companies told them there was no hope. We have very often found a way. We can never promise with 100% certainty because at the end of the day, we can't make Google do what we want them to do. But with a high success rate, we've seen a lot of advertisers be able to fix issues with suspensions and get back online with Google. And so if you'd like some free resources, again, we have a link to our free policy center with all sorts of free information that we are constantly adding and updating to. And if you want expert help in fixing your problem, reach out through our website, StubGroup.com. One of our team members would love to speak with you and figure out, learn more about your unique situation and walk you through how we can help you get back online with Google.